Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Michelle Pascoe, and thank you so much for joining me. Each week, I either interview an amazing guest, or perhaps I'm sharing my own insights over the past 3 decades in this amazing industry, as well as being in business. This podcast is for those in the hospitality industry, but it's also so much more than that. It's for someone just like you. Perhaps you're an individual building a business, or you're just starting out building a team, or you have many people that you lead and manage. If that is so, and you are wanting to create an amazing experience for your patrons, your clients, your members, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. It's a beautiful spring day here in the Southern Highlands, and my wonderful guest, Christina, only lives a few short hours from me in Canberra. And so it's wonderful to have her here today because coming into springtime, then summer, it is a time for festivities and, of course, bringing out the drinks, whether it's at work or with its family and friends. Christina Delay, Ph.D, leads ALTINA Drinks with a pioneering spirit and a scientific approach to creating non-alcoholic wines. With her extensive background in chemical biotechnology and plant biology, Christina was motivated to challenge the status quo of the beverage industry after seeking alternatives to alcohol that still offered complexity and enjoyment. She is the mastermind behind ALTINA's botanically infused wines, focusing on natural ingredients and Australian botanicals to produce drinks that are celebrated globally. Unlike other non-alcoholic wines that typically combine de-alcohol wine and concentrated grape juice, Christina never adds sugar or grape juice. Instead, she uses native Australian botanicals to build depth and that complexity. Recently, ALTINA collaborated with the Botanic House for a wonderful non-alcoholic event with the beautiful wines matched to the menu by sommelier Luella Matthews. And we'll chat about that a little bit further down the line. But first off, welcome, Christina. I'm so glad that you've been able to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, when we think of non-alcoholic wines, particularly in my age group, you're like the eyes longer, it's something like dreadful tasting. So, what was the catalyst for you thinking, hey, I can bring a product to the table that is going to wow the socks off people? And yeah, why? Was there something behind that, why you wanted to start this amazing business?
Yeah, absolutely. So my co-founder and partner in crime, Alan, and I, that's where we get the name Altina from. We started this business back in 2018. And at the time, I was working in technology consulting, which is a very boozy culture. And that boozy culture really started to catch up with me. And I got some health problems and IBS and had to take a look at everything that I was eating and drinking. And it turned out that alcohol was a huge trigger for my gut issues.
Wow.
Which was a big shock to the system. As a wine lover, Alan and my hobbies included talking about wine, drinking wine, eating food paired with wine. That was a big shock to the system.
Yes.
And so one day I was kind of joking to my friends, like, I've got this background, all those letters you mentioned before in chemical biotech and plant biology. I could certainly do something out of Breaking Bad. Or maybe I could try and solve this problem that I have where I really love the experience of a fine wine, but I can no longer handle the alcohol. And so I think it was very lucky that I was quite naive at the time because it turned out to be a very challenging thing to do.
Right.
Hence the eye rolls that you mentioned earlier when thinking of non-alcoholic wine. And at the time, the non-alcoholic drinks market wasn't what it is now, 6 years later. It was really something that there were no options. I would go out to dinner and, everyone at the table would have a beautiful wine list and they'd have food pairings, and I'd sit there with a glass of sparkling water and just be like, this is not a great experience. So yeah, I really approached it from that perspective of solving my own problem. And as we started talking to people about this idea, we found that many people face a similar challenge. Many people would love to cut back on their alcohol intake, but there's something really enjoyable, and there's a big social culture around drinking in Australia. So we really wanted to help to change the conversation around drinking and alcohol, and help people meet their health goals by providing a healthier alternative that still ticks all of those boxes from an enjoyment perspective without needing to have the alcohol there.
Yeah. And I love how you've come from your own perspective. You hear so often people go, oh, I've started this business because I'm passionate about it. But if you start a business because you've got the problem and then you move along and you meet other people, it is absolutely remarkable. And we're hearing so often now, and even myself, from earlier this year, I got to that point a bit like you. It was like, well, has become second nature to pick up a glass of wine. So I stopped as well. And I thought, oh, well, what am I going to, fill that gap in? And I'm finding it's just soft drinks, And even last week, I thought, oh, I'm having this really lovely meal. I have a glass of rosé. I was up in Cairns and it was lovely. But I didn't sleep well that night. And I thought, I'm wondering, even though it was just one glass, whether that was the impact on it. So you're right. How do you get your product to market then?
Yeah, really good question. And
Mm,
interesting on the perspective that you're saying about you having that experience, because we found that we started talking to people about it, and suddenly there was sort of this community of people who were like,
mm.
hey, like, we need this product, we need
Yes.
something that solves this problem for us. So I kind of quit my day job, and we started working on R&D for a product. So with my science background, I set up a little lab in the kitchen, which looked very dodgy. We live in a very dodgy part of town, so I was quite worried there would be police knocking on my door, wondering what I was cooking up in the corner. Um, but yeah, basically went through and did that R&D, and really came from it by throwing out the rule book of winemaking.
Mm,
Most sort of non-alcoholic wines, they come from traditional wine brands, and they have a very set way of doing things. So
mm,
that was not my background. I came at it from this perspective of enjoyment and experience, and what the consumer is really looking for and wanting.
mm,
So after 5 or 6 months of R&D, we actually launched a crowdfunding campaign where people could, you know, pre-purchase the first bottles of our drinks and come to our launch party and that sort of thing.
mm.
We didn't have a product set in stone at that stage, but just the groundswell of people who were so interested in this
Wow.
concept helped us to reach that goal, and helped us to be able to get our first lot of drinks into bottles.
Mm.
And so we launched on the 1st of December 2018. We
Gosh.
this most beautiful afternoon party with great food, all of our non-alcoholic drinks, and it was the most amazing atmosphere. And
Mm.
that memory today still sort of carries through in everything that we do, and
Yes.
how we can bring people together without needing to have the alcohol there all the time.
Mm. But how wonderful, you've got this idea, you're working in your kitchen, as you said, and then you thought, oh, all right, we'll put it out to crowdfunding. We'll actually see, is there anybody out there? Because we know a lot of people go, yes, that's a wonderful idea, Christina. When it comes to it, they don't always buy it. And you think, great, you said that you wanted, that you needed it. But then as you said, to stand there that afternoon and see the groups of people, and I'm sure were there many people that you didn't even know, like they weren't just family and friends that you'd rallied
Yeah, I
together.
mean, I don't have that many. I have a big
Yeah.
family. I don't have that many friends, and there were over 100 people there. So
Wow.
it was quite incredible, and really I guess a testament to the need for this product and this
Yes.
space, and
Yeah.
what we can do when we bring people together with something that's really interesting, exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's bringing everybody together. So let me ask you then. So how do you approach creating that inclusive experience, for customers in the hospitality industry, and particularly those who prefer that non-alcoholic beverage? How are you connecting them with the actual industry that's serving it, whether it's in restaurants, whether it's in clubs, pubs, hotels? What's that journey been like for you?
So that has been a very challenging journey from the get-go. Let me put it that way. I know that back in 2018 we were laughed out of venues. There was a big disconnect between this massive customer base of people that wanted something and I guess the hospitality industry saying there's no demand or no interest. And to be honest, there's still a disconnect there today.
Yes.
We still speak to people every day who say sort of, we've got soft drinks on the menu, we don't need something else. And I think in a lot of ways it's really disappointing to the customer because going out and eating is an experiential thing. It is a really big part of socializing. It's a big part of the Australian culture. So it's a challenge and a shame for the customer. It's also a big shame for the hospitality venue, for example, because instead of, you said before, you could just buy a soft drink. Instead of that, you can provide them with an experience and there's financial benefits. You get to sell a $12 or $15 glass of wine and make really great margins on that. So I think we've done a lot of work on getting insights from customers and what they would like and what they're really looking for when they go out and feeding that back to the industry and helping them make, I guess, the best practices around how can you introduce non-alcoholic drinks on the menu. And, some of those logistical challenges, like where do I put it on my menu? Like, how do I explain this to a customer? How might I suggest, or upsell if somebody just says, I want a water or something, you can offer this in its place. So there's definitely a big education piece. But on the flip side, we've also got such a big customer base who are so interested in it. We often compare it to, gluten-free food or vegetarian food. And 10 years ago, that wasn't even a menu feature. And now people choose which restaurants they go to based on the quality of those offerings. And we're starting to see a similar thing with the non-alcoholic options. And I think that's a great opportunity. And we've seen really good success with venues that embrace it. They're ordering cases and cases every week, and their customers are benefiting and they're benefiting. And it's a great experience.
Yeah. I've had a couple of brewery guys that are just purely gluten-free beer. And and that's really, from the Mornington Peninsula, and they've just taken off. But the same thing, trying to break into some big hospitality venues where perhaps there are the known brands that own all the taps in the case when it comes to beer, or they are the wine supplier and they do that. How do you find it? Because I know I've been to some amazing restaurants because I love eating, and I'm starting to see more and more the non-alcoholic wines. Do you find it is easier to approach, the standalone businesses, the people that really want that quality and, something different product, as well as your online, than going into these big hotels, although it would be wonderful to be a part of them as well? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely been a bigger challenge to go to those bigger hospitality groups. I think because it is something that is fairly new, it might be that they haven't really established their position on non-alcoholic as a whole. And we're finding that with quite a few of the big groups. And it's kind of pushing down the road as other things pop up and a higher priority. And where we have found a lot of success is like you're saying, with those smaller and independent venues that really care about the customer experience. They, they might be listening to their customers and getting that feedback directly, where that's a lot harder to do at a big group level. So I think that there's definite upsides to having a carefully curated non-alcoholic menu for smaller venues. And it's, at the moment, that can be a real point of difference and can really make a difference in the venue. We've got some local venues here in Canberra, and there are a lot of business lunches here in Canberra, obviously, business lunches. But the amount of feedback we've heard about how many people appreciate being able to have a business lunch and pair it with a non-alcoholic wine um,
Yeah.
has been astounding. And that carries on right through all of those different use cases. People are much more health oriented these days.
Mm.
They still want to enjoy themselves, though. They still want
Yes.
to have a wonderful experience. So that's where we find us being a small independent brand, we are able to do really innovative things and take different approaches.
Mm.
And that has really given us a differentiated offering in the non-alcoholic space and allows some really interesting things, particularly when we partner with hospitality, in terms of things like food pairings and
Yes.
bespoke events, and even going down to venues that do large events. It's a wonderful offering to be able to offer
Mm.
to guests because this stat is a couple of years old, but over 50% of Australians drink rarely or not at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yes.
And
Mm.
I don't know how many people realize it's that much.
Mm.
So
Yes.
that, yeah, it's definitely a growing part of the population.
Yeah, and I wonder, like I do a lot of research in the various generations, and I'm thinking just off the top of my hat here, whether that's also the changes of that of the baby boomers who have been our largest cohort over, over decades now, as they begin to, grow, beautifully into retirement or past retirement now. They've got the money to, they still want a quality product, but they either don't want to or really nobody wants to be that older woman looking dreadful. Like you're not 18 anymore. Let's be honest. And so I'm wondering if also is it that generational shift because they want a great product, as I said, they want to pair it with a really nice meal. So it's moving into that very little or no alcohol again. But I even know when we look at Gen Z, many of them are coming through, and that doesn't have to be that there doesn't seem to be that strong connection with alcohol, whether that's due to advertising, what their parents are doing, their friendship groups. So yeah, that's a really interesting statistic. I'll have to look into that a little bit more because I think we have this attitude, don't we, that all Australians, the guys are all big boozy blokes, the women are, every afternoon are having their spritzers. It can be something very, very different, can't it? When we look at stats. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. And I think some of those insights that you have right there are spot on.
Mm,
We find a lot of our customers and through our online store, we
mm,
service thousands of customers every month, and we're able to create relationships with them and really connect with them. So we get a lot of this information, um,
yes.
and a lot of our customers are sort of habitual wine drinkers. They're used
Mm,
to wine, they're used to the experience, and they are looking at that healthier habit, as you mentioned.
mm. So, talking about your website, I've gone on a few times and looked at it. I'm thinking, wow, it's clean. It looks beautiful. I'll be putting all the links in the show notes. But you talk about there, and I think, my listeners are probably going, well, this is really great. And it sounds very nice what Christina's saying, but what's this makeup of a premium wine and these Australian botanicals? Because I know you give a little bit of a story on your website, and you must go on to have a look at it all because you've got some lots of different packages and one-offs and little group pairings, which I think is a great way to sell. But what is this? What is this botanical and what's this premium wine? And what is this secret sauce, so to speak, that you can share with us that isn't using grape juice or a whole heck of a lot of sugar?
Yes, great questions. So, in our production process, what we do is we take a wine that is fermented, produced just like an alcoholic wine, and then we use a method called spinning cone to really gently remove the alcohol from that. And we can do that at very low temperatures, so we don't damage the wine as much as we can.
Mm,
When that wine comes out, and this is the case for most methods of removing alcohol from wine, honestly, it doesn't taste great. Um, it's quite acidic. In some cases, it can still have those sort of varietal characteristics from the
mm,
original wine. And this is where most winemakers add back in sugar or grape juice concentrate.
Mm.
And that's where we sort of are very different. We take the wine out of the spinning cone, so it's got very, very low alcohol, less than 0.02%, so almost none, less than in a banana or orange juice.
Mm.
And then what we do is we add beautiful botanical ingredients. So these are a hero native Australian ingredient, plus a blend of other things that enhance the flavor of the varietal characteristics. So, for example, we've got a finger lime Sauv Blanc.
Mm.
So this has taken a beautiful Sauv Blanc that had some tropical fruit, citrus notes, top notes, and a little bit of sort of herbaceous or grassiness on the palate. And we've blended that base wine with finger lime to enhance those characteristics. And then we've added some other botanical flavors like a bit of cucumber, there's a bit of that sort of herbaceousness. And it really helps to build up the palate, the complexity that's lost when you take the alcohol out.
Mm.
So that's one of our examples. That finger lime Sauv Blanc is one of our two best sellers. It's
Yes. Yeah.
beautiful on a hot summer's day. Our sparkling sangria is another really great example. That one uses a native rye berry as
Right.
hero native ingredient. And we've blended that with different botanicals that help bring out, we've got a bit of orange in there, a little bit of vanilla and oak. And so by using botanical extracts, so basically extracts from plants, we're able to build this flavor profile. And so something that people really love about our drinks is that first sip is different to the last sip.
Oh, okay.
Similar to if you have a wine, you start sipping it and you might eat some food with it and you find that the taste changes and it really sort of becomes even more enjoyable as you sip on it. So that's our secret sauce. So we don't actually add in any sugars or grape juice concentrates. We do that blending with those botanical ingredients and yeah, bottle up that.
Right. So I just love the process. Obviously, no longer in your kitchen.
No. No, we had to very quickly move out of my kitchen for that first bottling run back in 2018, and we haven't looked back.
And my goodness, there's a couple of questions. First off, how fast did it move? That, you had that afternoon, celebration outside, everybody thinks this is just fantastic. How fast did it move? And then what was the impact when, oh my goodness, we all have to now stay at home? So yeah, I'd love to know what those challenges were and how you stepped through them, particularly being such a young business.
Yes, and I guess I should caveat. So I came from, obviously I've got that science training, and I was working in technology consulting at the time. And
Mm.
Alan is an accountant by training, and was working in finance at the
Mm.
Treasury and other financial consulting. So we did not have a background in FMCG or consumer products or
Right.
anything. So everything was absolutely a learning curve. And once we launched that first product, we were arranged pretty much immediately by some of the local grocers and bottle shops here around Canberra. And honestly, for about 18 months, we were doing everything we could to just keep up.
Right. Right.
We had our own small facility here, and I was day and night. I was producing and bottling, and we had this little manual bottling machine, and we just I would put a box down, and then Alan would be like, "Thank you, this one's going out to this shop or that shop," and yeah, it was really a great problem to have, but
Yes.
very challenging, very challenging.
Yeah.
We also welcomed our firstborn around that time as well. So I was, uh,
Hey, why not? You don't do
go.
anything in halves, just go for it.
Why not? Yes, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't recommend doing that, but hey, here we are.
Well, that as life happens, and you've just got to roll with that. So
Exactly.
you're going busy. It's 18 months. It's still the two of you bottling, packing, delivering. Then everything shuts down. Are you at this point online as well? Had you already started your online business?
So it was extremely fortuitous. At the start of 2020, we'd actually just been going through a digital champions program. And
Right.
so that had, we received a bit of funding, and that had actually got us to the stage where we had a website. And like it literally turned on like 2 weeks
Oh, God.
before lockdowns and things happened. It was the most incredible timing.
Mm,
Um, so yes, it was a very new thing for us to be selling
mm,
online. We had been focusing on retail as well as sort of markets and connecting directly with customers, but also doing events. We did lots of pop-up bars and things.
mm.
So yeah, the lockdowns had a huge impact. All of a sudden, people kind of realized they could buy things like drinks on the internet,
Yes.
and that it wasn't a horrible experience. It was actually
Mm.
quite a great experience to be able to order things. And so I think it was June, we were like hundreds of orders deep from online, and we just sort of said, like, this is insane. We have to find a way to scale faster. We have to find a
Yes.
way to scale up our production faster to, you know, if you've never tried to send glass bottles of liquid around this country, I envy you because it is a challenge.
I was about to say, well, that to me then seems even a bigger headache is how do you get it out there? Yes. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And just setting up all of the systems, we weren't
Mm.
prepared for it. We never imagined it could be what it became so quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, we were finding we had to find some partners to help with the production side of things, and obviously because we used some methods that are from the wine industry, but we then also used that second aspect, and we had
Mm.
requirements for the way that the wine was handled after it was dealcoholized. And that was kind of more akin to a different type of manufacturer. So it was really challenging for us to actually set all of that up and find the right partners. But we did.
Good.
We did, and we got that all set up. And what they say, building the plane as you're flying it. Absolutely building the plane as we're flying it. And yeah, very nearly took nosedives very often. But
But you
yeah,
persevered, and that's what
yeah.
it's all about. Did you have an opportunity? Did you work with any business coaches, any mentoring, or really was it the both of you still sitting there, with a book going, all right, this is the next step. We've got to do this. Now, how are we going to work out freight forwarding? How are we going to, get the labels, find these partners? Because that's difficult, particularly when, it's like a baby, isn't it? A business, it's yours and it's Alan's, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, we need to bring somebody else in that we're going to partner with. Are they going to understand how important this is, and are they going to be right for our brand? So yeah, can you
Mhm.
share a little bit of insight on how you traverse those challenges as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the startup community in Canberra here is really good. It's a really good little ecosystem. So I'll just start with that. We actually joined a social enterprise accelerator from the get-go because Alan and I both wanted to do something that would make a change, would have an impact on our community. So we started this business as a social impact business and continue that today. So we had the benefit of having a bit of a community of people around us who had built social impact businesses before.
Mm.
Granted, none were in the food and beverage space, but it helped with those sort of business challenges
Mm.
that you're talking about. And then I think really a big part of us getting to where we are today is really being willing to listen to our community and to build relationships with
Yes.
partners, like you're talking about.
Mm.
Our label supplier is still the same as it was 5 or 6 years ago,
Wow.
and really building relationships with those suppliers and making sure our supply chain was conforming to all of our values,
Yes.
as well as
Yes.
something that we could grow with.
Mm.
And I think that was a really big part of getting to where we are today, and we couldn't have sort of done that
No,
without it.
certainly not. And that's wonderful. So this is just a startup for businesses that have that social impact. And it's there. It's this hub for my global listeners. Canberra is the capital of Australia. Not everybody realises. They all think it's Sydney or Melbourne. It's not, but it is. It is in between. It's my girlfriend had, or her family had. Big merino sheep properties just outside of Cooma and Canberra, and we were, for many years you say, they took all the beautiful land when they built Canberra, but I lived down there myself, and apart from the 1,001 roundabouts, it is a beautiful place. But how much it's changed! I mean, I literally lived there. Gosh, I'm just trying to think now. Mm, uh, yeah, late 1989, 1990, that time period. And it was still like not so much a country town, but there was the focus on government employment because that's the area. But now just, I'm going down there because it's close to where I live now, but just hearing you talk, I can hear that it's a whole region of inspiration of people with dynamic businesses, and how wonderful to be a part of that, Christina. That do you find now that you're able to help and ignite that potential in others as well?
Yes, yes, and that's absolutely one of the best parts of this whole journey is we've kind of nurtured a couple of businesses. We had a cheesemaker in our warehouse at one point, setting up a small facility there, and we're working with a couple of startups now that we kind of help to deal with things like those logistical challenges and that sort of thing. So that's a definite plus for Canberra, and it actually now I think it's 40% private business here in Canberra. It's not the government town anymore, but I think the most significant thing that's changed over the last, we've been here for 10, 12 years, has been that the food scene. Like there are some really good restaurants here in Canberra now, and people are bringing a creativity and a vitality, and it's, we previously, I think, were viewed as quite a boring place.
Yeah.
But honestly, now I can't keep up with the amount of new wonderful venues and restaurants that are opening. It's exciting, and it's great for the local community as well as for tourism. There's a lot of tourism as well. So and it's great for us to be here because we can partner with all of those exciting new things that are around and really help contribute to building that culture a bit.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And you're right. I know when I lived there, I think most restaurants shut by 7:30. If anything was open on a Sunday night, it was an absolute miracle. And the only place really to eat that of anything flash was Monica.
Yeah.
And Monica's still got some restaurants, but now, as I said, I'm going down for a conference this weekend for 3 days, and I'm looking forward to enjoying. And I've got family living down there. I think I really should go there more often. And like anything, when you mention it out loud and it comes all of a sudden, it's in your feed in social media. I'm seeing all these restaurants and bars in Canberra. I'm going, where were these all those years ago? But it's great to see that it's not only a whole region that is growing and prospering, but all these small little businesses. And I love how you're helping others, because to me, that's so important, isn't it? It's that collaboration and that care, which is fantastic. And I know we had spoken about that you did a collaboration with Botanicals. You had an event and with your drinks and the sommelier Luella Matthews. Now, how did all that work out? Because that's been a little while ago now, and we were going to talk about that. That had just happened when we had originally decided to catch up. But share with the listeners, what was that about? How did it come about? And what's been what have you seen any changes? Anything come out of that since then?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had been talking to Luella. She's one of the head sommeliers at Tripper's White Group, the big hospitality group. And she was really interested in the non-alc space and could see that there was that demand coming and a real opportunity within her group to showcase some beautiful Australian producers, because there are a lot of sort of independent producers in the non-alc space as well. So we kind of worked together on this event where we did an evening event, beautiful 4-course meal, and paired all of those wines together. So it was a fully non-alcoholic event, and invited some media, but also sold tickets to the general public as well. And we were absolutely stoked with the turnout and the feedback. So it was close to 80 people come along to the event, and it was just the most enjoyable evening because everybody was able to learn something new, first of all.
Yes.
Enjoy those food pairings. Every table that I saw, there were discussions about how the food and the wine were complementing each other, or what little bits that were really interesting. And I guess the thing that I love about our wines is it also sparks that discussion about the botanicals. Like,
Yes.
I've never heard of rye berry before, but I can really see how that contributes to the flavor of the wine. And also here's an interesting tidbit. That's a fruit with the highest amount of vitamin C. It actually has more vitamin C than oranges and some of those other superfoods. So there's just so many little nuances you could go to. But I think overall, being able to hold an event that had such high quality food and matched that to our wines really opened people's eyes to the fact that it doesn't always have to be alcohol, and it can be a really great complement to an alcoholic food pairing. And I think at the end of the night, I would say the vibe of the atmosphere of the room was, yeah, it was probably similar to had it been an alcoholic wine pairing, but everybody just sort of said, like, I can't believe that it feels like this, and I'm not going to wake up with a sore head tomorrow.
Yes, yeah. It's getting people to try it, isn't it? And then once they do, my gosh, it just spreads like wildfire. And before we came on, I'd love you to share that quick little story about what you were saying about social media and somebody coming up to you in the street. So how do you get your brand out there? Because, it's lovely to have this. There you are in your Canberra community. People start to know you, but you're much bigger than just Canberra. So what's that journey been like?
Yeah. So after we launched and really got the community here in Canberra, when the e-commerce came online, we thought we can bring this to the rest of the country. And so we really had a big focus on using those social media tools, and being able to build a community. So we did that through during lockdowns. We had a series of events. We held a zero proof festival where we had different speakers and activities and food wine pairings and virtual events in that way. And so that was really great to sort of start conversations. And I think that's one of the keys to this sector because it's so new. It's a really interesting conversation starter because it's not something that people just sort of talk about. People don't be like, oh, you know what? I don't really need that wine, but I'm just taking it because it's there and it's a habit. Like, it's a really nice conversation starter and can lead to some really interesting conversations, learnings, changes. And so, yes, building that social media community. And then later on, we ended up building a wine club, so similar to an alcoholic wine club, but we now have thousands of people part of that wine club around the country who receive regular deliveries. We've actually just built out and launched actually this week an app to go with it, and we're starting to build a community into that app so people can really, we want to be there in all of the ways and the places that you enjoy socializing. I guess. And yeah, to your point before, we do use social media a bit for advertising. And I had somebody, I was in Sydney walking down the street, and I had somebody literally stop me in the street going, I love your drinks. You've changed my life. And I was like, first of all, you are amazing. Like, amazing. But yeah, like, the fact that I was in an unknown place in the middle of Sydney, like not my hometown or anything, and I had somebody stop me on the street to say what an impact we had made on her lives was just like, it brought me to tears almost.
I was thinking immediately because you just don't know the impact that you have with people, do you?
Yeah.
And for her to actually say it to you? Because a lot of people, they may go on and say, "Oh, this is fantastic" on social media, but for her to actually stop you, wow, it really must have made an impact, and that's something I'm sure it will keep with you forever because it's, you create this wine and it's for this amount and then it's that amount and then the community is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when you have something like that, you think, wow, this is so much more than what I thought it was going to be. Is that how you feel sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. And having that online side is really great because we can connect directly with our customers. And
Mm.
every single week we get emails like this. And people are just sharing a little bit of their lives and
Yeah.
how we've been able to be a part of that. And
Mm.
like, as you've heard, this has not been an easy journey. It's
No,
been very,
no.
very challenging. But getting that feedback and hearing from people in the community has just like it's just what continuously
Yeah.
gets us up and going and yeah, keeping on.
Yes. So there's you, Alan, in the kitchen. Now you've got a family. You've moved out of the kitchen. How big has your team grown? Great to have these partners and bringing those in. But have you developed your own team, or do you outsource a lot of your work? How do you work with that?
Yeah, so we've been able to keep quite a small team, but very sort of close knit. So
Mm.
I was very, very happy about 18 months ago. My mum is now working for us,
Oh, lovely.
which is wonderful. So anybody up in Queensland, she'll be your point of contact up there. But we have a warehouse here in Canberra and a few staff who obviously help us to pick and
Yes.
pack and get all of those orders out. And yeah, also a bit of a family affair. We have sisters and things working with us there. So very small team, but yeah, a wonderful team, really
Yeah.
good people to
That's
work
That's wonderful. And then it's this dynamic of having a business and then having family involved as well. So,
with.
and having your mum. I think that's lovely. That's really, really good. So what's the future for Altina? Where's it going? And what are the trends do you see? Even just thinking, look, I'm looking outside this beautiful sunny day, and we were talking about that, finger lime Sauv Blanc. I'm thinking, well, I haven't had that. I haven't had a Sauv Blanc for so long, and I used to love it, but I think now, oh, it's just so heavy. But just the way you describe it, I thought, wow, that just sounds so nice for summer. So apart from, I'm digressing of what I can't wait to go out and buy something now. Because to be honest, I was one of those people. I'd look at a menu and go non-alcoholic wine, like you know. But
Yeah.
but now just speaking to you, having a look at the website, which I've been doing for a number of months now, I'm thinking and seeing your social media, I'm going to actually try it. And then see what it's like. So, what are those trends that you see with non-alcoholic wine, and what's the future hold for Altina? Where's it going to next?
Yeah, so I think the non-alcoholic movement has sort of come off the back of a general wellness, health and wellness trend.
Mm.
And I don't think we've seen the tail end of that
No.
trend. So I think that's going to continue to grow in momentum. And, a lot of people talk about, as we mentioned earlier, younger generations not drinking as much.
Mm.
But I think it's really important to acknowledge that older generations are actually changing their habits and are continuing to. And that's something that's really exciting because we can sort of see whole families and how those family dynamics are shifting as well. So in terms of the trends, I think non-alcoholic as a sector or the non-alcoholic sector is continuing to grow. We've seen a huge explosion over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, we've seen non-alc in supermarkets, bottle shops, kind of everyone was figuring out where it belongs, where the
Yes.
best sort of place for it is. And I think that we'll continue to see that in the sort of the bottle shop and that area because people are not necessarily completely cutting out alcohol, but they're really moderating or
Yes.
people might not drink during the week and enjoy a glass of wine on the weekend or that sort of thing. So it's that sort of frame of mind. People
Mm.
might start out their meal with, a sparkling or something, and then later on swap to a non-alcoholic option, and then
Mm.
maybe go back. So it's really about catering to those different needs and recognizing that people have got changing needs
Mm.
when it comes to what they drink and what they're thinking about.
Mm.
I think in terms of ALTINA, we are stocked quite widely around the country from a retail perspective. We're in a lot of the bigger bottle shops
Wonderful.
and lots of local retail as well, which is wonderful. And we are really hoping to help venues and restaurants get non-alc onto their menus and really be able to service their customers and meet their customers' needs in that way as well. I think that's a really interesting, exciting space because we can do so much. Like I said, food wine pairings.
Yes.
You can introduce a whole other element to your menu by including non-alc drinks. And so definitely a super exciting space to be in and not something that's just going to quietly go away.
Definitely not. Do you think that's also a driver when people, are sitting in a restaurant and say, do you have non-alcoholic drinks? Because that's what, I'm looking at beverage menus now and you're starting, we've had the mocktails that have gone with the cocktail, that sort of thing. But really, it's just that take out the alcohol. Whereas yours is something so unique and so different. Do you think that's also been a big driver where it's been a bit of a wake-up call to perhaps some restaurant owners going, gee whiz, that rep may have come in when we thought, oh, nobody wants to drink non-alcohol. And now because it's been driven by the diner, the guests, they go, I need to speak to them again.
Yeah, and we've seen that. So we've seen venues that we spoke to, at the beginning of our journey 4 or 5 years ago, and they've come on board maybe only in the last year or so because they're starting to see that change. And I know there's a lot of sort of it's a broader cultural movement. There's been a lot in the press about the sober curious movement and moderation and how people can start healthier habits. And I think that opening up that conversation a bit more has made the disconnect between the consumers and
Yes.
the venue managers. It's narrowed. I wouldn't say it's completely gone, but and nobody wants to be that person that's sitting at a table with their friends and says, I want a non-alcoholic option. Like
Yes.
it's not a nice or a cool thing to do or say. So there's not a lot of incentive for customers to do it. And so I think that's where it's important to keep that open mind and experiment with different things, and providing a high quality non-alcoholic option is really important. And I'm not talking about a mocktail that is just juice. That's not
That's
a
right.
high quality non-alcoholic option. I'm talking about something that has a similar experience to the rest of your wine list, because so many venues have such beautiful, carefully considered wine lists, right? They put a lot of effort and time into curating that. And it should be the same. It should be the same with the non-alcoholic side. And you can do some really amazing things. And that's where when we were working with Luella for the event, she said, I can do things with these non-alcoholic wines that I can't do with
Wow.
a whole pairing.
God.
And particularly, because we use some of those botanicals,
Yes.
they actually bring out different flavors. So we paired our Kakadu plum rosé with this beautiful tea smoked duck breast. And
Wow.
it was just being able to appreciate, like the Kakadu plum brings that bit of tartness, and that worked so well with the smoky tea flavor of the duck breast. And then because it was a little bit acidic, it cut through the sort of the fattiness. And it was just so such a good experience being able to bring those two things together. And I think that it might be a bit of a mindset shift that providing a non-alcoholic option or drinking a non-alcoholic option is not a compromise. It's not like the poor cousin of the alcohol menu. It can actually really elevate an experience.
I love that. And it's a beautiful way to, I think we could talk all afternoon, Christina, but that's a beautiful way to finish off the fact is it's not a poor cousin. It's
Mm.
beautifully with the beautifully curated wines. It's of just as great a quality, if not probably even better. You're going to feel fantastic. You're going to
Mm.
really enjoy your food, and that carefully curated non-alcoholic wine list is going to complement it, which is fantastic. Now, listeners, you must go to the website and see all the different packages that Christina and the team have there. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Do you ship overseas at this stage, or is Australia your biggest market?
Yeah, so we are just starting to explore world domination at the moment. So we are available in Singapore and we're looking at other countries as well. So that's
Perfect.
definitely in our future. I think bringing these amazing Australian
Mm,
ingredients and also the Australian wine to the world is so exciting. And I think it's something that people are really going to appreciate.
yes, yes. And great gifts to take overseas too.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. Because
yes.
there's so many wonderful stories with those native Australian ingredients.
Mm, yes,
They're really they've been used for thousands of years by Indigenous peoples. There are some really interesting things behind them, and so yeah, it's a great gift and story.
yes, it is. Christina, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Is there something that I haven't asked you about your business that you'd like to share?
Good question. I think we've covered quite a bit of it. I guess one thing that people often like to learn and discover as they step into the ALTINA world is all the little tidbits that we've left throughout our branding and our communications. Everything has another meaning. So
Right.
right down to the way our labels are designed, they've got a sense of place and they hark back to those ingredients. So I invite you on the journey of discovery. You're not just drinking a wine, you're able to learn and discover together with us.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Christina. I know that my listeners are really going to enjoy hearing your journey, how it all started and where it's going and the impact that it has on communities globally. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you, Michelle. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I do hope there was some moments of aha, insights, tips, and some action steps for you to take in your business or organization. I love being in this industry. So the more that you can get the word out about this podcast, because it really is an honor and a privilege to have so many amazing guests on the podcast that we need to get the word out there. So please share. A review would be wonderful. And if you'd like to reach out and learn more about what I do and my signature program for the leadership development middle management movement, please have a look at the website www.michellepasco.com. Take care, everyone. Bye.